All right, y'all. It's Antiwar Radio, Chaos 92.7 FM in Austin, streaming live on the internet, chaosradioaustin.org and antiwar.com/radio. Our guest today is David Bromwich. He is joining us on the phone from Connecticut, home of George W. Bush. He's a Sterling professor of English at Yale University and blogs at the Huffington Post. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
It's good to have you here. I think we all were disturbed. Anybody who saw the New York Times last Friday, this outrageous editorial by one Benny Morris, an Israeli historian, about the likelihood and the necessity, he seems to think, of an Israeli/American attack on Israel and, on Iran, I'm sorry. Well, there's a lot of really notable things about this. I guess we could just start with the fact that he just assumes from the very beginning that Israel will attack Iran's nuclear sites any time now. And if they don't do it now, they'll have to do it with nuclear bombs later. So they might as well do it now.
Yeah, the steps he makes are a little more intricate. He says that Israel, I think at the start, he says Israel will almost surely attack in the coming months. And he says, this is no surprise to hear, it'll likeliest come sometime between now and January when the new president, whoever he is, takes office. But he says somewhere along the way, though it has turned into a minor point here somehow, that we can all hope that Iran is made to cooperate immediately by the international community and give up all research and essentially surrender all their pretensions to nuclear power. But if that doesn't happen, and then that's what you're just stating, and he assumes it won't happen, Israel will almost surely attack. If Israel's attack fails, that is to say, I don't know how they're going to make sure that it succeeds, but if they think it has failed, they'll come back and do worse. The fundamental idea of the article is Israel's right to preemptive attack against Iran, and its right to make, if necessary, a preemptive nuclear attack of some kind to stop Iran from getting its first nuclear weapon. Not that Iran is anywhere near being a competitor with Israel as a nuclear power, but even one weapon in the hands of these mad people, is the presumption of the article, is too much. Israel's going to do this probably, and Americans should understand.
Well, and even that, America ought to go ahead and do it to make sure that it works the first time. Otherwise, we'll probably have to come back with nukes, right? He seems sort of doubtful that Israel will be able to pull it off the first time and that it'll make nuclear weapons necessary if America doesn't do it instead.
Yeah, that's a piece of his argument, and it comes in the middle, that unfortunately Israel is not as well equipped for such an attack as the U.S. We are allies. It's a pity that Americans don't have the stomach for what he calls wars in the Islamic lands. Israel is more matter of fact and can do it, but if only America would, he implies, that would be better because Americans could do the job better.
Wow, I'm sort of deeply offended by that. Fight my war for me, because if I do it, I'll use nukes, is basically the argument there, which he's not the Israeli government, but it seems like an article like this from someone of his prominence, apparent prominence, in the New York Times, it must have been written with the guidance and approval of the Israeli government anyway, right?
I don't know that. That is to say, it's more than any of us knows, and I'm not sure that that is a hunch I share. I saw that in Antiwar.com today, Justin Raimondo makes that same surmise. But I do think it's meant to prod and more than persuade, it's meant to coax a certain kind of sympathy and possible reaction from the American government and from American public opinion and the American media. It's meant to soften us for whatever may come, and whatever may come, he suggests, includes actions of a violence we had been taught to think extreme, in fact, atrocious. What's underneath this? He's using Cold War tropes and situations to appeal to American readers. We, from the Cuban Missile Crisis, maybe, have a sort of vague memory of being up against a power that's supposed to threaten us so immediately that it would be worth putting almost everything on the line to stop it. He's asking Americans to enter into the situation of Israel and think that it's that extreme. This idea of preemptive war, or preventive war, as we should call it, though that distinction is pretty sophistical. It only hangs on differences of time. I mean, preemptive war means if you have reason to believe your enemy is just about to attack you, and that is on some theories of just war.
Well, yeah, I think that's an important distinction between, the British are massing troops on the Canadian border and they're ready to come into New York or whatever,
right,
versus, we're going to bomb this country because we don't like them and we're pretty sure that they don't like us, and so therefore they might attack us if we don't kill them first.
Right. I mean, if you accept the distinction, then what he's done in the article is, jack up the illegal action of preventive war to the point where it seems like it's preemptive. It seems like it's a response to an emergency. And what makes up the difference in this argument is the reading of the Iranian government, and indeed the whole nation of Iran, as murderous and insane, both. They're in fact understood to be a suicide nation, and therefore anything you do against them is warranted once they have so dangerous a weapon in their hands.
Well, now let me ask you a bit about that. You're a sterling professor of English at Yale, and if I remember community college rules well, you're not allowed to write an essay full of assertions where you don't provide evidence for your assertions.
Yeah.
I got a big D because I wrote a great essay that had one assertion without evidence. And then I learned from then on, if I'm going to assert something to be true, I have to provide evidence or I get a big D. But now it seems to me, Professor, like I could write for the New York Times, no problem, as long as I'm promoting war.
Yeah, well, I believe you're right that if this article had come in without a signature, it would have been rejected. It's not good thinking, and some of it is pretty dingy as writing, too. But there's a premise that is not stated, the one I just sort of alluded to, that the Iranians, on the evidence of Ahmadinejad's anti-Semitic statements and of the wildness of their denunciations of the West, which many Americans can remember from the time of Khomeini's revolution, the Iranians are crazy and murderous. That's the unstated premise. And then what you're calling unsourced, or the assertion that doesn't have evidence to back it up, is his assumption that they're very far towards having a nuclear weapon and they want it, and this is what they would do for it. Now, there's a very vague statement about that in the op-ed. Benny Morris says all the intelligence agencies in the world, I believe that's the phrase, or something very like it, all the intelligence agencies agree that Iran is moving toward a nuclear bomb. Well, I can think of two exceptions, but they're important exceptions. One is the National Intelligence Estimate of the United States, which we heard about at the end of 2007, which said that Iran was many years from being able to make their first nuclear weapon, and their nuclear weaponizing programs had been, so far as the intelligence directorate of the whole U.S. services could see, had been abandoned. The second exception, which with some people might carry just as much weight or even more, is Mohammed al-Baradei, the head of the International Atomic Inspection Agency, who has found inadequacies in Iran's reporting but has gone nowhere near suggesting that they're about to get a weapon or that they want to have one and use it in this way. So,
well, I have a third to add to your list, too, which is Meir Dagan, the head of the Israeli Mossad, who has said that, we have years and we have plenty of time to work this out. They're years away, which I don't think anybody specifically followed up, but that would seem to imply that he accepts that the nuclear program the Iranians have is the one that is safeguarded by the IAEA, the one that everybody knows about. He's not saying in there, well, except for their secret program, which we don't know how advanced it is or anything like that.
Right.
He's saying they're years away. That's Meir Dagan, the head of the Mossad, says that.
So there is another bit of evidence to confuse us more about the idea that somehow Benny Morris speaks for the Israeli government. This head of the Mossad is closer to the Israeli government than Benny Morris, and he doesn't quite want to go in the same direction. So we may be looking at cross currents and kind of twistiness and argument going on within Israel that is quite comparable to what we see in America, because we know that the Cheney and Elliott Abrams wing of the Bush administration wants to attack Iran or see that Israel attacks it very much, but that it has looked as if Condoleezza Rice and Robert Gates and others were pushing the other way. So for all I know, there's something very similar going on in Israel.